Welcome back to another lesson with me, Mr. B. In today's lesson, we're going to learn about realism. Realism and naturalism are concepts that have various meanings depending on the subject area. For example, with realism, you might immediately think of reality, whereas with naturalism, you might immediately think of nature. In literature as theory and as a genre, they have similar but different meanings.
The goal of this video is to know the differences between realism and naturalism and how it affects the dominant narratives. So realism comes in at the coattails of the 19th century and transcendentalism. Realism begins around the time slavery was abolished and flourishes between the Civil War and World War II. The genre of realism questioned literature itself and asked things like, how should literature respond to social problems of its time? How can language capture what is real? And how can literature help us understand competing perspectives on reality? According to the Oxford Dictionary of Literary Terms, realism is a mode of writing that gives the impression of recording or reflecting faithfully an actual way of life. It rejects idealization, escapism, and other extravagant qualities of romance in favor for recognizing the actual problems of life. So realism is not a simple reproduction of reality, or a slice of life if you will, but a system of conventions producing a lifelike illusion in some real world outside of the text by process of selection, exclusion, description, and manners. Realism is most commonly used to refer to literary fiction that was rooted in observation and documentation of the details of everyday life. Realism is a rejection of romantic, heroic, exaggerated, and idealistic views of life in favor of detailed, accurate descriptions of the everyday. The characters are presented as ordinary people involved in normal dilemmas of life. So what does this mean? Basically, writers wanted to record the everyday, moment-to-moment interactions that create our livelihood and experiences. So take a moment and talk to a partner or a neighbor next to you. Do you think that realism could be exclusive? Include their name and summarize what you two talked about. If you haven't already, head over to Google Classroom and read about realism on pages 14 through 16 and 21. Then respond to that same question. Do you think there are any connections between the definition of realism and the acts of slavery? Do you think that realism could be exclusionary or exclusive to one group? After this, we'll make some connections to naturalism. I'll see you then.